I'll call the May meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. We'll begin with our roll call. Dr. Lydia Alexander. Terrain Norris.
I'm present.
Eugene Brooks.
Present.
Alfred Moore. Who else is there? I don't know who else is here.
You have Cynthia Donald on the line.
Oh, okay. Cynthia Donald.
Present.
Is that everyone? I don't see any other names on the screen.
You got Miss Rowe, Cynthia Rowe.
Cynthia Rowe. Cynthia Rowe.
You haven't announced yourself. Do that.
Cynthia Rowe. Lynn Lewis. James Phillips. How many is that, Mike?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
this is Terrain. Mr. Moore has arrived.
thank you.
All right.
So that gives us 8 present, or 8 available, or 8 in the meeting.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm showing 6 with 2 present. I got Jay Houghton.
That's
Terrain
correct,
Norris.
Jay. We have 8.
8. All righty, thank you. The first item on our agenda is Pine Lane Park LLC requesting rezoning to R4. Presently, it is R2 for the purpose of multifamily 3-story dwelling units, proposed 132 units. Is there anyone present to speak for or against this zoning request? I'm sorry, anyone present to speak for this zoning request?
Jay, we have someone. He's going to come to the podium.
Thank you.
Alton, are we ready for him? All right, come on up. Say your name and address and who you're here for.
My name is Zach Parrish, 8673 Lake Drive, Bessemer, Alabama, 35022. Here representing Pine Lane Park as the applicant. Our request here today is to seek rezoning of 3939 Parkwood Road, which is what we feel is a transitional location between commercial industrial into existing R2 and other RG property across the street. We feel that that's the best use for this property at this time, given that it is a transitional piece. We'd also like to add that the City of Bessemer, of course, has done a fantastic job in the recent past of bringing in additional jobs to the city. One thing that is now lacking that we found is a supply of housing. That is the reason for our request today. I know there's going to be a lot of opposition here, and we've, I think, heard most of the points of opposition, primarily being traffic and drainage, which are, of course, things that we feel like can easily be worked through given the process of the design engineering phase that we work with the City of Bessemer, Jefferson County Roads and Transportation with. At this point, I think it's probably best for me to sit back and listen to what other opposition there may be or any questions that the board may have at this time, because that kind of broad strokes of our point and our request.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present wishing to speak in favor of this zoning request. All righty, well, we'll open the floor for any
on.
opposition.
Jay, we have one in favor of, is that correct? Okay, never mind. So you're opening it up to those opposed. So
Correct.
before we do this, Jay, you probably can't see out here, but there's a room full of people. So
Yes, sir.
and there's 5 or 6 items out on the agenda today. So try not to be repetitive. If somebody's made a comment, you're gonna say it for the group. Bless your heart. Okay, come on up, say your name and address. Okay, my name is Jim Martin, and I live at 3926 Parkwood Road, and I've lived there for 20 years. I've been chosen to speak for the homeowners opposed to the rezoning of these properties on Parkwood Road. I live precisely across the street from where they're talking about. I believe that there's is there only one item on the docket today for rezoning?
There's like 5 or 6.
Okay, well, I'm speaking for the ones that are pertaining to Parkwood, which are the apartment complex and the 2 townhomes.
The townhomes are listed.
They're gone? Okay, well, I'm not speaking for them anymore. Okay. I have signed petitions here. 443 signed petitions right here. You can see. Yeah, plus other people that we haven't talked to yet that adamantly oppose this. And we have several reasons, and a lot of it is not more than the road and the drainage, but the road's a good thing to start with. And we understand. First of all, we understand the land will be eventually rezoned and used. Okay, that's a given. We know that's going to happen. However, we are concerned about how it will be used. Our area is overpopulated and underdeveloped in a lot of ways. And there are no parks, no places you can walk your dog. There's no place to push your stroller. There's nowhere. And if there was no way to get there because there are no sidewalks and there are no walking paths to get to any public facilities. Trying to commute by foot up and down Morgan Road or just going across the street to get your mail, you're taking your life in your own hands because there are a lot of reasons behind it. But this property that they're trying to rezone into apartment complexes is some of the last commercial property connected to 459 and Morgan Road. There are plenty of businesses out there, Dollar General for one, that would love to have this space that would do the same thing he's wanting to do, which would be providing income for our city and jobs for our people there. Again, our neighborhood is overpopulated and underdeveloped. There are a lot of businesses that could go there, and Home Depot, Lowe's, many of the food places would love to be there. And Dollar General, their store is so overtaxed half a block from there that they can't even get in the parking lot there. And this would include property taxes, sales taxes, and employment taxes. And one thing that you always got to remember, you can never go to an apartment complex and buy a gallon of milk. We need stores. We need commerce on that street for the people that live there. They're asking for, there's 400 people here that live in that area that don't have access to these things. An apartment's only going to make it worse. And we hope that this board here has the vision to see the value of commercial over multifamily and townhomes. The proposed rezoning would not match the capability of these properties. Our areas, again, is overpopulated and underdeveloped. The roads, okay? The intersection of Parkwood Road and Morgan Road would not support the additional traffic. It is incapable of doing so. It's 4/10 of a mile from Morgan Road to in front of my house, which this apartment complex would go into. And when the bus comes in the morning, or even if the bus isn't there, the traffic backs up past my house. So approximately a half a mile every morning, you have to sit in that traffic to turn right to get on 459. Withstanding the additional use traffic produced by the 400 or 500 new residents that would be coming into this apartment and other facilities in the area, the population density would not benefit homeowners in the area like a restaurant or a coffee shop or a neighborhood shop would do. Already backed up at least twice a day is too much for a road. They're not planning on putting a red light there, and there are children who would have to cross that street coming across there to get there. Now, I realize that this is the county's road. It's not the city of Bessemer's road. But what I do know that if the infrastructure that it would take to accommodate these apartments complexes is not there, and it hasn't been there, and these roads are a disgrace to our city, even though they belong to the county. There are on that road, on Parkwood Road, from Morgan Road to 150, there are two large companies there. One of them carries trees and one of them carries dirt. They haul those trucks up and down our streets the whole time. When this started to do that, I went to our council member from the county and talked to him about that. And there's not a whole lot they can do about it. But we've got craters in our road right now that people are hitting and messing their cars up, and the trucks just keep coming back and forth all day long. The need for the apartments that they're saying that we need there. We realize that there's new industry coming up and down Morgan Road all day long. But as of a couple of weeks ago, there were 450 apartments available immediately within the area of ours. So the need for these apartment complexes are not really there. There's plenty of apartments up and down Lakeshore that have been there. And my facts came on this from, let's see, from apartments.com, which is the only reliable source of information on the availability of units. Again, 450 units are available as we speak. Let's see, school buses. School buses come and take the children out of our neighborhood every morning. They'll, like I said, they'll be coming across the street to get to the bus. Again, it backs up. And when the roads are not backed up in our area, they think it's an Autobahn. The people will come down Parkwood Road anywhere from 60 to over 100 miles an hour going down that. And that's regular. I live there. I sit in my front porch and watch this. So it's a very dangerous street. No lights coming in for 133 units, coming across from 80 something units. That's 200 units of apartments coming into a road that's already backed up. Either have to take left or right. It'll be a cluster. There's no way to get by that. Okay, let's see. One of the things, when we first had our meeting concerning this the other day, we talked about the number one issue with our people about these apartment complexes. And the number one thing that they voted on was the value of their property. They feel like that apartments being built there would devalue their property. Second thing was the road. And the third thing was the water. Now the water, I live on Parkwood. I live right next to my house, and behind my house, they built Parkwood Estates, which is Southwood Park. And when they did, they had to drain the water out of my backyard. It was a wetlands. We had beautiful fowl coming in every year that would land there and go, but they've had to drain that. Ever since they built that, there's been an issue with water all the way in our neighborhood, all the way down to Morgan Road from that. They're calling for taking the water running off of this apartment complex and putting into our ditches that are already there, and already the natural infrastructure of the land, it won't hold it. when it rains, it floods. You can hardly get over the bridge to Parkwood and right down by Morgan behind CVS. The water comes all the way up to the road. And this is recently we're seeing this. So also too, behind where they're wanting to put these apartment complexes, there's wetlands out there that are still moggy and stuff like that. And they're wanting to put a retention pond up there to run that water off into our wetlands and let it go naturally. We don't need water coming off of 7 acres of buildings and asphalt going into our wetlands. It wouldn't be healthy. Really wouldn't be. And we're really not looking forward to that. And the other thing is schools. Let's talk about school. Everybody that moves into one of these apartments is going to have to go to school somewhere. They're going to have to be picked up by buses, and that will put that many more children into our overcrowded school system that we already have. And then the last thing is parking. If you propose 1.6 spaces per unit parking, this is the required minimum for apartment complex, and have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom, which are planned for this development. It is obviously insufficient parking. It's inevitable there will be more cars than units, and overflow parking is not being considered. There is no overflow parking. Anywhere up and down Parkwood Road, there's nothing but culverts, and there's nowhere you can even pull off and park if you wanted to. Go down 4/10 of a mile, there's parking lots, places like that, but there's no public parking. So when everybody comes home at night and tries to park their cars, there's nowhere to park. They can't come out on the street. They can't come across the street into our neighborhoods because there's parking restrictions. So there's just so many things that we are so under ready for this project now. And we would love to see y'all take the authority that y'all have and the request from 400 and something residents here, take us into consideration. Let's hold off on this. Let's wait for the roads to catch up with the construction, because if you do this construction of this right now, we're going to be completely gridlocked. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and look forward to hearing your verdict. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin, for your prepared report. Is there anyone else present that is in opposition to this zoning request? Do the members of our commission have any questions or comments? Okay, she is.
Donna Thigpen, City Council, and of District 4. And these are my residents that are here, and they've come to me concerned. I appreciate y'all looking at this. I've known Zach a long time. He came to me and told me what he was going to do. And I pretty much laughed at him and told him he was going to have an uphill battle, because I know this area and I know the residents and I know what they're expecting from this. And we talked about it. Like he said, commercial is going to be one of the things that could be there, but you're not going to have traffic in a commercial, maybe an office building or a business, that you would with 130 apartments. You won't have that traffic. You won't have as many people going up and down the road. I won't repeat everything he said, but I will say that I know so many people are against it, and I support them. So I appreciate it if y'all would deny the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Do the members of the commission have any questions or comments? Is that Mr. Parrish? Oh.
I don't think so.
Chairman,
Yes.
this is Terrain. Can we just need to make it clear we're an advisory board in terms of rezonings. We just make recommendations to the city council. So I just wanted to make that clear, put that on the record that this, whatever we decide or whatever we recommend is not the final decision. That goes to the Bessemer City Council for final decisions.
Thank you.
My name is Ed Stoll. I'm an elder at Beth El Shaddai Messianic Synagogue, which is right next door to this property. A lot of the issues have been addressed. So I just want to give a little bit more to that. The drainage comes across our property from Parkwood Road. And when it rains like it did last week, that whole property over there floods. When I looked at the preliminary plat, and by the way, I just want to emphasize, I'm also a certified planning official with the city of Westover, Alabama. I'm actually the planning commission chairman, so I'm familiar with what you're going through. I looked at the preliminary plat. There's one of the buildings that's going to be, actually the corner of it touches on the center of the drainage area. That concerned me. The parking was totally inadequate. And there's going to be, the preliminary plat I saw would create an intersection right there beside our synagogue. And I don't know if an ALDOT traffic survey has been done or is planned to be done, but I would ask that would be done before anything gets approved. The other issue that we have is we have a large number of children at our synagogue, and we're concerned about the safety and security of an apartment complex being there. Again, the traffic, from what I understand, the demographic of the marketing that's going to be done on this is going to be young couples. And I don't know very many young couples that have to have dual income to afford an apartment like this. But they are not, the chances of them both working at the same place at the same time where they can ride to work together is very slim. So you're talking about 2 vehicles per apartment. So that's going to add quite a bit of traffic, and coming right across from the townhomes that are across the street. In the 20 years that I've been going to that synagogue, that traffic has increased tremendously. So, but one of our main concerns from our people is that the safety and security of our children when they're there at the synagogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone present that, again, wishes to speak in favor of the zoning request? If not, I'll ask again if the members of the commission have any questions or comments.
Well, Zach Parrish again in response for Roger. So again, there were many points brought up with respect to roads and drainage, which we've acknowledged and know that we've got to work through that with the corresponding departments, the city of Bessemer and Jefferson County Roads and Transportation. Some of those meetings have been held preliminarily, and we know that there are some things that will be required, such as turn lanes, decel lanes into our project that we're prepared to accommodate. To be honest with you, the comment that this is better suited for commercial property just doesn't make sense. The traffic that's going to come in off a commercial project, whether it be the retail, coffee shops, restaurants, is certainly going to be a greater vehicle count than what we're proposing to do. I think what it really comes down to is that for some reason, everyone is just against a multifamily project coming into this area, and against the community growth is all we can see. And not sure why, because we've addressed every point here. Road repairs will be easier to make with greater income from this property. Schools will be limited impact due to the fact that we are 1 and 2 bedrooms, encouraging younger newlywoods and people without children. The parking, we do not have a mix of 1 and 2 and 3 bedrooms as suggested. They are 1 and 2 bedrooms, and that single people will be there. So 1 cars, this is all comes from the zoning and planning requirements that are set forth for us. It's not our recommendation. Again, it's a good transitional location. I also live and work in this area. I'm from this western side of town, and my children, we shop, live in this area, and feel like this a needed project. That's I support it.
Any members of our commission have any?
Jim Martin again. I'm sorry. I can't hear what they're saying. Jim Martin here to speak.
Yes,
Thank you.
sir.
Would like to discuss the fact that if this was across the street from his house, he'd really be happy about it. Secondly, let's talk about safety and security of this project. He doesn't even have a fence built into his plans for this for safety. The church, again, it's right next door. He's putting 3-story buildings up here, which would look directly across the street into my windows, and I'm on top of a hill. Okay. No fencing, no security, nothing like that in his buildings that he has plans. But the crime, he says that there's no increase in crimes in apartment complexes. Come on, people. Everybody knows the difference on that one. Secondly, the fact that this wouldn't be better commercial property and that the count would be higher, I can't see that. If he puts 123 units coming in and out of there, what about the weekends? Up and down all day long, packed in the weekends. That's just not the case. I don't believe that he can save Parkwood Road. I can't see the whole foundation of the road is shattered because of these overweight trucks that have been going up and down. 2 turn lanes that he's saying will go in there. I don't know where they're going to get the space, whether they're going to come and take my front yard to do that, but there's barely 2 lanes now. I don't know where he's going to put the turn lanes to go in there. And the fact that he says all these meetings have been done, all these meetings have been done, and never once were we notified or talked to about anything that they've discussed about this project. They come in, tried to slide it under the door for us, and we don't want this. There's 400 and something of us, and that's just the ones we've been able to get the numbers on. There'd be a lot more. So this is not a good thing. It needs to be commercial. I don't believe the car count would be as high on commercial because you wouldn't have the people coming out of the commercial facilities every morning going to work like you would be. They'd be coming into the commercial facilities after 7, not going to work every day. So I don't believe that. So all that is what I've got to say. And again, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve the zoning request or reject the zoning request?
Mr. Chair, this is Terrain. I keep hearing a road situation come up and the drainage situation. Can we ask the city engineer whether that has been studied, whether anyone has looked into the impacts on road and traffic out in that general area?
Yes, Terrain, this is Ron Gilbert. That would have to be studied in detail if, with whatever was proposed to go in there with an apartment complex, we would have to receive a detailed set of plans to evaluate the drainage, and they would be required to hire an engineer and prove that there was no adverse effects to either adjacent properties or downstream properties, and they would have to certify that. As far as the road goes, the city would require a traffic study, just the same thing the county would require. But the final approval on Parkwood Road access, since Parkwood Road is one of the through roads that's in the through roads agreement with Jefferson County, they would have final say on the required improvements on Parkwood.
So we have not looked at, I guess those impacts hadn't done it. Is that what I'm hearing? We hadn't studied those impacts.
Those studies would have to be done depending on what development went in the site. So that would have to be something that would be done in the future, depending on whatever development was there, whether it was rezoned or not.
That answered your question, Terrain.
Somewhat. That seems to be one of the sticking points that I hear, and that was the one that jumped out to me was the impacts on traffic. And I am aware of some of the impacts that the people over in the Southwood neighborhood have had with some of the flooding that's taking place over there. I guess I need some more information. I don't know if we can make a decision on apartments and new developments without understanding the impacts it's going to have on the neighborhood and the development that's already out there.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Brooks, if I could. And I'd just like to piggyback on the comment Terrain just made. Normally, whenever a project of this magnitude is involved, there are going to be direct, indirect, and cumulative effects that should be addressed. And that's just the NEFMA law that is required. And I'm curious to know who did the environmental analysis on this and where can we find a copy of the documentation that should be addressing those issues.
Thank you, Eugene. Any other thoughts or concerns from the commission members? And of course, I'm hearing that you all would like to have maybe 30 more days to get answers to these questions before you take a vote.
Yeah, I guess along those lines, Mr. Chairman, we do have one other person that is here. Would you, we do have one other person that's here. Would you allow him to speak, or what's the preference of, I guess, the commission?
By all means, the person is welcome to speak to the board.
I'm Jason Thomas. I lived on Parkwood for 18 years. Nobody else brought up across the street is Hoover, that has a neighborhood that has over 1,000 houses in it, which at least 300 comes out on Parkwood Road every morning. And sometimes we ain't able to get out. Right. We can't get out. It takes me 15 minutes. I leave past 6:15. I'm sitting there for 30 minutes sometimes because nobody lets up at that stop sign. They just keep on going without even stopping. So that's another thing y'all got to think about. There's 1,000 houses right there letting out on that road. Thank you.
And Russet Woods.
Do we have a motion?
Wait a minute.
Yes, sir.
My name's Ralph Hodge. I've been living on Parkwood Road for 56 years. And like the young man just said, when I start out of my driveway every morning, I can't even get out on the road because there's so many cars coming out of there, and you just have to wonder if you're going to make it before you get run over. And they talked about flooding. All that part down in there floods. You know, the other night when we had the big rain down there on Greenmore, where the railroad tracks is, that water was 5 foot deep. And all this water they're talking about when they do this renovation, all that water is going down into the same place. So I'm highly against them putting anything in there. And they talked about nobody, you know, had no trouble. Well, we all know right up here on Berkeley, they had to take all them houses down and rebuild all them houses when they had the apartments. Now it's just single dwelling houses. And y'all know that there's always problems when you have a bunch of people together. And most of them are going to be young folks. They're not going to be old like we are. You know, I'm so old now, I had to kickstart myself in the morning just to get up. So I'm fully against it. And I understand what he said a few minutes ago. I know that the board makes the recommendation to the city council. The city council is the one that has the last say whether or not it gets rezoned. And I thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the zoning request or to reject the zoning request or requiring additional time?
I guess, Mr. Chairman, this is Terrain. We do need some additional time because we need additional information. I don't know if we can make a rational, logical decision with the information we have before us to advance it on to the city council. So I guess the question to the city engineer and maybe even to the developers, how much time would you need to get us the information that we need to make an informed decision?
Mr. Gilbert, would you like to speak to that?
Well, I think a traffic study and a drainage study would both take more than 30 days to get that completed.
Thank
That
you.
would be the responsibility of the developer, not the city.
Yes, sir.
And
All
also,
righty.
there's, Madam Chairman, this is Commissioner Brooks again. We
Well,
also-
let's make a correction. It's Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're welcome.
Just want to pick it back on that. That's probably going to be a minimum of 45 days needed because those comments going to have to run in the legal to give the public a chance to comment, to be included in the impact statement. And that's the only way you can address them in the mitigation measures in the document. So it's almost a minimum of 45.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Cynthia Donald. After listening to all of what everyone has to say, I totally agree with Mr. Brooks. I ride that road day in and day out, and sometimes my children are late getting to school. But I would like to make a motion that we do not accept this request until after all traffic studies and drainage studies, agricultural studies has been done.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion? My question was, is there a second to Cynthia Donald's motion that we delay approval or rejection until a study can be conducted and completed in possibly
Mr.
45
Chairman,
days?
this is Rain. If that was the motion to just delay until for further study, then I will second that.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you.
If that, again, that's if that was the motion. I don't know if we can reject it or approve it here
All
today.
right. Well, her motion, yes, is to delay approving
Right.
until a study has been completed. Vonda, would
I
you please
second
call the roll?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Alfred Mora, Ms. Lynn Lewis, Mr. Eugene Brooks,
Yes.
Mr. Terrain Norris,
Aye.
Mr. James Phillips, Ms. Cynthia Rowe, Ms. Cynthia Donald,
Aye.
Mr. Jay Houghton.
Aye. What is the total, please, of the vote, the result?
So that carries. So it's gonna do it.
Is anyone opposed to the motion?
Okay.
There being none, the motion is approved, and we will revisit this in 45 days or when we're notified the study has been completed. The drainage study and traffic study has been completed. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. Number 2, City of Bessemer Board of Education requesting a resurvey of the property 901 4th Avenue North. That has been approved administratively, and all lots meet the size request and requirement for institutional zoning.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I hate to interrupt you. We just had I guess we have some people leaving the meeting, so can we just hold on for about a minute and allow them to leave the facility, leave their chambers?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Chairman, I think they've all left.
Thank you. I was saying on item 2, City of Bessemer Board of Education requesting a resurvey, property 901 4th Avenue North, has been approved administratively, and all lots meet the size requirement for institutional zoning. Item 3, Charles Moore.
Mr. Chair, may I ask
Yes.
a question, please?
Correct.
This is Cynthia Donald again. Who is going to pay for that resurvey?
I will ask the Board of Education, is my
The
understanding.
Board of Education. That was my question. Thank you so much, sir.
All righty. Item 3, Charles Moore, Habitat for Humanity, requesting rezoning 6043 Hopewell Road Southeast to R3A Patio Garden Home. Is someone present to speak to this request?
Madam, Mr. Chairman, we have someone here to speak on this matter.
Thank you. Would they identify themselves?
He's at the mic, he's at the podium now.
All righty.
My name's Joel Childers. I'm 153 Cahaba Valley Parkway. I am here representing Habitat for Humanity and the rezoning request of, we have 13.6 acres that we are asking to be rezoned to R3A, the patio home, garden home district. We are requesting the rezoning to build single-family homes in the area. We think that this zoning is consistent with the new construction that's going on in the area, the developments that are going on around there, and would like your consideration as we ask for this rezone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go.
Anyone else in favor of this, approving this zoning request and speaking to it? Is there anyone in opposition to this zoning request?
Mr. Chairman, doesn't appear to anyone in the chamber is in opposition to this request.
Does the city engineer have any comments?
Yes, I just wanted to let the board know that a development plan was submitted, and it does meet the minimum requirements of the city ordinance for a development plan. And if the board does approve this and the city council does approve the rezoning, they will have to submit a preliminary plat with road design and a re-review of a complete set of plans if it moves forward. So the board will be seeing this again if it is approved for preliminary plat approval.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Do the commissioners have comments or questions concerning this request?
This is Terrain, Mr. Chairman. I did have one question. I wasn't clear. How many homes again are being constructed in the? Yes.
Hey, Terrain, what we're looking at is 31 lots.
I see it. He addressed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments concerning this request? Do I hear a motion to accept or reject this request?
Mr. Chairman, this is Terrain. I recommend we approve we recommend the approval of the rezoning to R3 of 6043 Hopewell Road Southeast.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Who was that? Donald.
All in
Cynthia
favor?
Donald.
Thanks, Cynthia Donald. Will the secretary call the roll, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Alfred Moore. Ms. Lynn Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Eugene Brooks.
Aye.
Mr. Terrain Morris,
Aye.
Mr. James Phillips, Mrs. Cynthia Rowe, Mrs. Cynthia Donald,
Aye.
Mr. Jay Houghton.
Aye. Anyone in opposition to the motion? There being none, the motion stands approved as and now a positive recommendation will be sent to the Bessemer City Council concerning this zoning request. And Mr. Moore making the request, you will go before the Bessemer City Council when that is placed on their agenda. Shan, do you have an idea when that will be on the City Council agenda to let Mr. Moore know?
That will come down from the mayor's office.
All righty, thank you. The next item on the agenda, item 4.
Mr. Chairman, I think Sham's gonna speak to that.
Oh, he is, okay. Thank you.
But in confirming with Tom, it sounds like it'll be probably the first Tuesday in August, something like that. We've got to get the legal description and get it advertised, so we'll do all that.
Thank you.
Tom said the third Tuesday in August.
Thank you. Thank you. And Mr. Moore, we look forward to seeing you again. Item 4 is a rezoning request from a Mr. El Amin for property at 1800 3rd Avenue North to mixed-use development, 40 residential units, 600 square feet, commercial space and parking. Its present use is institutional District 2. Is there someone present to speak to this request?
Yes, good evening. My name is Kendrick Pullen, representing Scott Crawford, the real estate developers. We appreciate the continued support of everyone on the project, and we're here requesting rezoning so that we can continue to work on the project. We're running through environmental testing right now that's being conducted by PPM. And they have communicated to us an early June completion. So we're just trying to coordinate and make sure we had our zoning requests in with the completion of our environmentals. Like you said, we're looking at 40 units, 1 and 2 bedroom housing with 50 units of parking and a 600 square foot commercial space.
Does everyone understand this is our former Bessemer City Hall that's being discussed?
Yes, sir.
All righty. Anyone present against this zoning request? Any comments or questions from the commissioners concerning this request?
We do have someone, I think, that is wanting to speak and address the commission.
Thank you. Step forward and identify yourself, please.
Robert Johnson, 1730 4th Avenue North, Bessemer. I just wanted to ask that the developer have some standards for the facility that will meet, will be in line with downtown architecture and not just minimum architectural standards.
Thank you.
How's everybody doing? This is QLME, the developer on the project. And to address your concerns, the building is kept as is. So we will be redeveloping the inside, so it won't be demolished or knocked down. So the character of the building will remain. And from the renderings that was submitted for the parking structure, it is brick that will remain in the same character as downtown.
So you just said that you will not be demolishing the City Hall building or the adjoining structures?
No.
There will be no demolition of that. Yes, okay. Now, I don't recall seeing a rendering concerning the parking at the Acre parking area.
Yeah, that was submitted probably at this time, maybe a year or so ago, but we can resend it out as well.
Mr. Gilbert, do you have any thoughts on this? Oh, excuse me, rather, what are your thoughts concerning this proposal?
Well, I guess two items to bring up to the board. One of them is that a mixed-use zoning has an acreage size, and this is smaller than that acreage size for a mixed-use development. And the other item is that I would like to bring to the board's attention is that on the parking, what was submitted would be accessed from two directions, and one would be accessing the parking deck from 3rd Avenue, which, you know, parking, there is no access to any driveways or parking along 3rd Avenue right now. So I think that's one thing that the board needs to be aware of that would probably need to be discussed with the city council and some planning. Preferably the parking would enter and exit from the alleyway. But I mean, that would be a topic of discussion. I mean, that's the only two things that I saw on the development plan that I would question and bring to the board's attention.
Thank you. As I have studied all this, I have a lot of concerns about all this, and I don't know if it's not worth us considering to possibly devote 30 more days to not only having that addressed and us being made aware of, but other questions with regard to the historic significance of that Art Deco structure. I don't recall seeing any sort of proposal or rendering of the facade of the former City Hall. And then I also was thinking about, don't we need a report from the fire department concerning a fire plan? And then I was thinking about windows. There was just a lot of variables that I didn't feel were answered. So maybe it merits us devoting some more time, as well as the developer, to make a more thorough presentation and renderings. Because this is a national historic district and this structure sits in that district.
Yes, sir. And again, the building will remain as is on the exterior facade. And in the renderings that was done by KPS, and they submitted, and we also presented them pre-COVID, they show the rendering that it will remain the same, and then in addition to parking.
So you're prepared to make a presentation or provide us with copies of these renderings?
Yes, yep.
I would appreciate that, as well as what's proposed for the main level, the street level.
Yeah, so for the street level, it was a small commercial space and the same facade that you see with the double wide glass doors will remain because we want to maintain the historic character. As you all probably know, that was the first architect that was licensed in Alabama designed that building. And so us, as well as the new architect who we're bringing on, want to maintain the character of the building with the one thing of restoring the clock that was there. And if, I don't know if you can see it, if we brought it up on screen, we can show the renderings now to be able so everyone can see it since we are here in the.
I personally would prefer having time to study all of this than just showing us right now. Because I'm sure I'm not alone. Others have not seen all of this and had a chance to really digest. Because to me, this is most significant for the heart of downtown Bessemer. I would certainly appreciate having some time. What is the pleasure of the other commissioners?
This is Commissioner Brooks. I have a question or two before we move forward, if you don't mind.
Yes, continue.
It was my understanding that PPI have already done the analysis. If that's the case, all he have to do to me is to share those analysis. And if PPI is a legitimate firm, which I have no reason to think that they are not, it appears that they should have already addressed some of those major concerns within that present document. And therefore, he would not have to start at the scratch to give us that, just share the document.
So PPM, which was hired by the city to conduct the phase 1 on both properties, what they found was in, I think, a 75 foot radius, there was 4 historic dry cleaners. And so with that being, they have to do boring samples. And what we're doing is we're paying a peer review by United, which is another environmental, because they specialize in crafting the phase 1 so that it can be approved and it's acceptable Alabama Housing and Finance Authority. So that's what we're going through now. And once we get that put together, they still have to do the phase 2 studies, which haven't been done on the vacant parcel that we own or on the City Hall building. And what we're trying to do is match the timing of the environmental with the rezoning so that we can move forward with the financing, but we need both those in place before we can move forward.
Understood. And also, doesn't that building fall under the historic development? So you would get building points for that, correct?
We are investigating that, but we're not getting, at this time, historic tax credits for it because the auditorium portion, it's back and forth on whether we could build a second story to add the units necessary to accommodate it. So without us building a second story, we would be able to accommodate about 24 units. But again, that's a lot less than what we proposed, but we need to build a second story in there to meet the 40 units. And that may be outside the historic character of what was there for the auditorium that was
there. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Terrain.
Yes.
I had a question related to one of the issues Mr. Gilbert broached, and that's the mixed use zoning. And I know, Tom, you and I touched on this briefly. Mixed use is generally 10 acres, and they're not using 10 acres for this particular project. I guess what's the step we need to take or the city needs to take so that they can qualify under our zoning criteria for mixed use?
Mr. Gilbert, you can speak to that.
I think that would be up to the board to give either a variance in this particular situation or look at another zoning that would more fit, a condominium or apartment. Also, I didn't know you were proposing some commercial downstairs, weren't you? Or is it all going to be proposed apartments?
Yeah, it was proposed of 600 square feet of commercial.
Okay.
that being said, are you of the opinion, Mr. Gilbert, that we need to consider delaying this until we receive additional information to address some of these issues?
Tom, you can step in here anytime on the zoning issues. Have you got an opinion on the best approach? Whether it needs to be a variance on the zoning, on the size of the MXD or another type zoning?
Ron, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. This is Tom. With the 10-acre minimum for mixed-use development, it's I guess I'd have to defer to Shane on this, but it's my understanding that the Texas Zoning Board of Adjustments to grant a variance around a part of a city ordinance, whereas the Planning and Zoning Commission, make permanent changes or changes of permanent nature to an ordinance. I guess if you wish to, you could do it contingent upon the variance being granted. I go with terrain. At some point, we should probably look at the ordinance and adjust that 10 acres. Our ordinance was written a long time ago. Not a whole lot of 10-acre parcels left, and with mixed use being all the rage now, it's we should probably look into changing the restrictions from that hard and fast 10 acres. But again, I'd have to defer to Shan for legal knowledge, but I would think that if one board were to grant a contingent, another board could offer a variance, or in vice versa order. Shan's coming up. I think he's going to speak to this.
Hey, yes. So this is kind of a chicken or an egg thing. In some respect, I would say that what I think Tom's idea is correct. If you were to rezone it mixed use district, I would have the Board of Zoning Adjustment grant a variance for that use also. And the only other alternative would be to look at some type of residential zoning, which I don't think would be appropriate. We all think probably mixed use district is the best. So, yeah, I think this is probably the best zoning for it, but one or two things, either the city council needs to amend the zoning ordinance to require less acreage, or the Board of Zoning Adjustments needs to grant a variance in addition to the change in zoning.
Thank you.
And this is Terrain again. I have one more, question. I guess to speak to the whole issue of the mixed use, we are, as the city continues to grow, you are starting to get different interest in your downtown, particularly for mixed use type developments. I know I just got a call from someone the other day that was interested in something like that. So it's definitely something that needs to be looked at in terms of the future. In terms, Ron, on the parking and coming in from the alley as opposed to 3rd Avenue, is that something that we as a commission would necessarily deal with, or is that something that would be dealt with entirely by the building inspections and city council and what have you?
Well, that would be mainly dealt with when detailed plans were submitted. I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention because what they submitted was, along with the rezoning, was a development plan. And that was one of the things I saw in the development plan that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention. And if that does change, then I guess the final development plan would be different than the development plan right now that the board is looking at.
Does that answer your question, Terrain?
It does. I will say I have seen the renderings, and I'm really curious as to, maybe the fact that they weren't included in the application pack. I'm really curious as to, whether that was just an oversight or what have you, because I have seen them. And in terms of the brownfield, they did take part in a brownfield program. The city received a $300,000 brownfield grant, and that property was tested up under the brownfield grant that the city received.
Thank you. What is the pleasure of the commission with regard to having some unanswered questions concerning this zoning request?
I guess my question would be, what are the questions that we're asking to be answered?
Well, I would say first and foremost, we want to address, I think the overall concern, the impact it has as a property in a national historic district, certainly the concern of parking or questions about that, as well as the 10-acre question. And I would really like to see renderings what's being proposed, especially how they envision the facade to look. I just feel like there's still some uncertainties with all this. But what's the pleasure of the commission?
From what I'm hearing on the dais is they feel like those questions have been addressed. And if that's the, I mean, I can't speak for them, but if they like to. Yeah. So I move that we recommend the approval of this rezoning with the caveat that they also get the simultaneous variance from the zoning board of adjustments.
Is there a
Was
second
that your motion?
Yes.
I second.
Who made the second?
Cynthia Donald.
Thank you. All in favor of the motion? Excuse me, Vonda, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Alfred Moore, Miss Lynn Lewis, Mr. Eugene Brooks.
Aye.
Mr. Terrain Norris,
Aye.
Mr. James Phillips, Mrs. Cynthia Rowe, Mrs. Cynthia Donald,
Aye.
Mr. J. Houghton.
No. The motion carries, and this will appear on the next step will be, of course, the city council agenda, and you will be notified, I'm sure, when that will be, so you can speak to this. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Item 5 is a request from Mark Lawrence requesting a resurvey of 2501 5 Star Parkway. Is there someone present to speak to this zoning request? I'm sorry, this resurvey.
Chairman, this Terrain computer, there's anyone in the chamber on item number 5?
Thank you. Mr. Gilbert, do you wish to speak to this resurvey request?
Yes, this is a one lot plat. It's off of 5 Star Parkway. It's adjacent to it's a lot 24, which is the last lot on the left. Mr. Lawrence had submitted the documentation on this one lot. It's approximately a 4-acre lot. It would require sewer extension and roadway extension. And he's requested that work be bonded so he could go ahead and create that lot.
Thank you. Is there anyone in opposition to this resurvey request? What's the pleasure of the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the resurvey request for 2501 5 Star Parkway.
Is there a second?
Second.
Vonda, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Alfred Moore, Miss Lynn Lewis, Mr. Eugene Brooks.
Aye.
Mr. Terrain Norris.
Aye.
Mr. James Phillips, Mrs. Cynthia Rowe, Mrs. Cynthia Donald.
Aye.
Mr. J. Houghton.
Aye. Thank you. The resurvey passes. There being no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second? Second? Vonda, will you call the roll, please?
Alfred Moore, Ms. Lynn Lewis, Mr. Eugene Brooks,
Aye.
Mr. Terrain Norris, Mr. James Phillips, Ms. Cynthia Rowe, Mrs. Cynthia Donald, Mr. Jay Houghton.
Thank you all. Have a pleasant evening.